Good evening, everyone. Hopefully, you're having a wonderful Thursday so far. I got a good one for you today. It's question period, November 7th. And it seems like this one's going to be a lot of Gil Bowe and Andrew Scheer going at each other. So, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. And with no further ado, let's get into it.
Oral questions, the honourable member from Regina Capel.
After 9 years of brutal assaults on Canadian energy workers, the Prime Minister just delivered a knockout punch with a production cap on oil and gas development here, which his own department admits will kill jobs and drive investment south of the border. Canadian energy company Enbridge just announced a $700 million project in the U.S. The Prime Minister is creating powerful paychecks for American workers while Canadian workers can't afford their mortgages or food. It's completely baffling why he would kill jobs here just to see them created down south. Is he getting some kind of a commission from the U.S. energy lobby for all the business he's sending them?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, what the member opposite is saying is simply not true. It's a cap on pollution, Mr. Speaker. In fact, production is going to go up 16% by 2030, and companies in Alberta, in the oil sands sectors, are making billion-dollar investment to make sure that workers in Alberta have a future and the energy sector has a future, and we can fight climate change at the same time, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Regina Capel.
It's a cap on production, and his own department says it will kill jobs. And let's listen to something else that their own officials are saying. The Prime Minister's own Environment Commissioner has blasted the carbon tax as a failure. Here's some of his conclusions. Quote, the government has not made sufficient progress to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And quote, Canada remains the worst performer among all member countries of the G7. Every time the Prime Minister makes the carbon tax go up, Canada's climate performance goes down. Yep. Yet he keeps doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. So why won't he call a carbon tax election so Conservatives can stop his insanity?
The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party of Canada is talking about climate change. We should note this somewhere in a book because it doesn't happen very often. If only they would talk about the fact that for 10 years they did nothing, which is why we had to pick up the slack from what when we came into power, emissions were going to overshoot 2030 by more than 30%, Mr. Speaker. Emissions are down by 8% because of our plan, the lowest emissions in 25 years, no thanks to the Conservative Party.
Now, I don't quite know if that's true, that 10 years ago, the emissions were so bad and the Liberals had to pick up the slack, because from what I could remember, forest fires were not that bad. And what I'm attributing to this is the Liberals, whenever there's a tragedy or anything, they always tout, like, oh, these forest fires are caused by climate change. This hurricane, caused by climate change. This rainfall was caused by climate change. So, from my memory, during the Stephen Harper era, the weather events we're seeing right now did not happen like that back then. So that means, in pure Liberal fashion, just using their own logic, climate change wasn't that bad back then. So the carbon in the air wasn't that bad back then. And we know, and we visually know that the carbon tax is failing because we're seeing weather events, like I said, using liberal logic, are getting worse and worse and worse while the carbon tax increases. And what do they say? The pinnacle of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and failing over and over and over again. I guess by that, the Liberals are insane, or the Liberal government are. And I got a point here from the first thing they were talking about when Gil Bowe was saying, well, because of our emissions cap, production is going to go up 16%. Not anymore. It's not. If possibly if Kamala Harris got in, that might have been true, because then companies would have been stuck between a rock and a hard place. But now that Donald Trump, the drill baby drill president, I'm going to be using that saying all the time, but now that they got that president in, we're going to see all of these companies going down to the States. All these oil and gas and mining companies go to the States, because it's going to be way easier to operate there than here if we vote the Liberal government in again.
Just encourage all members, please, to not take the floor unless they're recognized by the Speaker. The Honourable Member from Regina Capel.
Pick up the slack. Under their policies, Canada keeps falling on performance indexes. The only thing this carbon tax is doing is making Canadians poorer, and the results are devastating. A damning new report from the Salvation Army shows the human suffering this Prime Minister is inflicting on Canadians. Let's look at the report. First-time users of food banks shot up this year from 43% to 58%, and 1 in 4 parents are eating less so their children can eat. This is in Canada. How can he be so cold-hearted? Why won't he at least let Canadians decide in a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister for Economic Development in Quebec.
Monsieur le Président, savez-vous qui...
Mr. Speaker, do you know who has an inferiority complex in this place? It's the Conservative Party, because Canada has the lowest inflation. Interest rates are going down. Not only are we helping Canadians in need, we're building housing, we've got the family benefits, and the only ones in this place with an inferiority complex about Canada's economic resiliency is the Conservative Party. The Honourable Member for Mégantic.
Okay, that's just rude and completely showing ignorance right there, because Andrew Scheer's coming out and he's saying there's a study done by the Salvation Army, this isn't some random niche far right wing company. This is the Salvation Army saying now 58% of Canadians are going to food banks. A year ago it was 40%. So that means in 1 year it's shot up to 18% more Canadians are going to food banks. And then when it goes over to the Liberals, they have no answer for it. They're like, oh, everything's good. Interest rates are going down. Inflation rates are low. I can tell you what the reason is, and I'm just an idiot that, on the internet, who watches a lot of politics. The reason why more and more people are going to food banks is because inflation hasn't gone into the negatives. So grocery prices are still increasing after the massive rise we saw in COVID. And because of the rise in carbon tax, year over year, that's getting added on to everything we have. And so just those two things combined are pretty much wiping out our paychecks. And the Liberals try to combat this with, we're bringing in $10 a day daycare, which doesn't work. We saw it in Ontario. It doesn't help the daycare system, and it's inevitable that's going to fail. Dental assistance, which you maybe go to the dentist, I get once every 2 years, twice every year for cleaning, unless something happens, unless you have a cavity. So that's, if you don't have any insurance, that's about $400 a year, which is a lot. Don't get me wrong, but the price of everything you eat that you need going up, you can not get a cleaning and then just brush your teeth really, really, really well and use like Listerine and still put off that cleaning. Because I didn't go for cleanings for the longest time, and I didn't need that. So I'm saying food is something that you need. You can't avoid it, and it's skyrocketing. And it's liberal policies that are affecting it and making it skyrocket. And they're not acknowledging that. But before I rant any more about that, let's continue on.
The Prime Minister, supported by the Bloc, we learned today that our greenhouse gas emissions records are not reliable. And this Prime Minister contributed to doubling the price of food and rent, while at the same time not succeeding in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. They've not met any of their targets. When will the Prime Minister call an election so that we can cut taxes? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Mr. Speaker, you're going to have to put this on your calendar. The Conservatives have raised the question of climate change. They did nothing while they were in office. Nothing for energy efficiency, nothing for electrification of transit. The Conservatives did nothing. Their record was not good. Canada has had the best plan in recent years for reducing emissions, and it's certainly no thanks to the Conservative Party. They have no plan for the environment, no plan to protect Canadians, and no plan for national security. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-Lérac.
I'd like to remind the Liberals when Stephen Harper was first in power, and I think, don't quote me on this, I'm just going off of my memory, this was around 2014, I believe, 2013 or 2014, right when solar panels and windmills started to really become a thing. The federal government started to subsidize solar panels and windmills and actually started to have federal funding to residential houses to get these and to put them on your houses and all that stuff. So to say that they didn't have a very good policy on climate change isn't really a thing. Plus, back then, it was still being studied, which I don't know if anybody really remembers. It kind of makes sense that the government didn't really have a policy or a solid policy on it, because first we went through, it was going to be the new ice age, and then it was the ozone, and then it was global warming, and then there was going to be an oil crisis, so we didn't really need to worry about it because there was going to be no oil anyways. And then around around 2014, then climate change started to ramp up a little bit, but it was still called global warming. So that's when the Conservatives started to bring in green energy initiatives to Canadian residents, but they didn't bring in taxes. So I'm assuming what the Liberals are talking about is, the Conservatives didn't bring in any taxes for climate change.
I think the minister should read the Commissioner of the Environment's report. It's clear. Reductions are not attributable to any steps taken by the government. The Liberal environment policy is not a policy. It's just a plan for the environment. It's just a plan to tax. The Liberals, Canada under the Liberals has the worst record for emissions reductions. When will the government stop punishing Canadians so that we can finally cut taxes after an election? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. It's incredible what the Conservatives are willing to say. They've got their heads in the sand. insurable costs for Canadians for the impact of climate change were $7 billion in June and August. It's unprecedented. And what would the Conservatives do? Just let the planet burn. They have no plan to fight climate change, no plan to create jobs in the 21st century economy, no plan to protect Canadians, their drinking water and their health. It's a true disgrace.
This coming from the guy who was, because I think he's attributing this to the Jasper wildfires, mainly because that's what probably caused this insurance thing to really explode. That's when we started to listen or hear it. And this is the guy who was getting emails from their media spokesperson saying we should stop controlled burns in the forests because it was bad optics, and then all of it, and that's why we should stop doing that. And then all of a sudden we have an uncontrollable forest fire near Jasper. But as the saying goes, never waste a good emergency.
Before I turn the floor over to the Honourable Member for La Prairie, I'd just like to remind members not to talk while the Speaker has the floor. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, what farmers feared has happened in the Senate. Senator Peter Harder tabled an amendment to C-282 that prevents the bill from protecting supply management. Harder's amendment renders the bill inoperative for all renegotiations of existing trade deals. In other words, the Senate is doing Donald Trump a favor. He wants to attack supply management as soon as 2026 by renegotiating CUSMA. Peter Harder and Peter Boehm don't work for our agriculture. They work for Trump. Will the leader ask senators to defeat the amendment? The Honourable Government House Leader in the House. The Government House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We agree with the bloc. Bill C-282 on protecting supply management is important, and I'm disappointed with the Senatorial Committee who voted against the bill and who moved that amendment. And I would call on senators to respect the will of the House, and I would call on all senators to vote against the amendments and to support our farmers who are there to feed Canadians and who contribute a lot to our economy. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Well, I'm not a farmer. I've never been a farmer, so if you're a farmer and know a lot about supply management, if you could leave a link or leave a chat below and let me know what you think about supply management down there. I'd really appreciate it. But from what I kind of gathered from over the years, over schooling and over the internet, this is what I think about supply management. I don't think it's a good thing, to be completely honest. I think the free market should determine what how should I say this? What the cost of our dairy, our I don't think our meats, but our dairy, our poultry, and our eggs cost. Because when you go down to the States, all of that stuff costs a lot less because they're allowed to import it from other places because they don't have supply management there. Now, of course, I do believe that we do need to have quality control if we're importing that stuff into Canada, because if it's not up to like Canadian standards, then we shouldn't have it in here. Of course, that should be a thing, but we shouldn't be dumping milk, or I don't know what they do with overproduction of eggs and the other stuff. But like I said, let me know in the comments down below if you're a farmer or actually knows what happens with these farms. But I know that there's been lots of stories of when milk is overproduced, it's just dumped because of supply management, and that's not right. So if there's an overabundance of milk, the price of milk should go down. That's just the way it should be, I think, to protect the consumer. But let me know, like I said, in the comments down below.
Speaker, the honourable member for La Prairie. Senators Harder and Beam confirmed that from the outset, all they wanted to do was kill C-282. Their amendment virtually guarantees that supply management will be sacrificed again in the CUSMA renegotiation with Trump. They're attacking the all-party vote of this place. They're attacking 6,000 companies and 100,000 jobs in Quebec. They want to weaken our regions, ruin our producers, and weaken our agricultural model. I call on the leader, but this applies to all parties. Will the Senate leader ask senators to vote against this sabotage? The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, indeed, we are calling on senators to support the bill in its original form. It's very important to support and protect supply management. That has been the Liberal Party and government's commitment. We created supply management, and we will keep defending it. And I hope that the Conservative Party will also encourage Conservative senators to vote in favor of the bill in its original form. The honourable member for La Rosemont, La Petite Patrie. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government's record on the environment is pathetic. We're in a climate crisis, and the Liberals aren't getting the job done. The minister announced regulations to cap emissions from the oil and gas sector that'll take effect in 2030 in order to reach our 2030 targets. Today, the Commissioner of the Environment just confirmed that the Liberal plan isn't working. In fact, Canada comes in last in the G7. Will the minister finally do his job, or should he go back to climbing the CN Tower? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Mr. Speaker, I would encourage my honourable colleague from Rosemont, La Petite Patrie, to truly read the Environment Commissioner's report. It shows that Canada's measures are working. We have the best performance from 2017 to 2021 among G7 countries. It's true the Conservatives hadn't done a very good job before that, so it was an easy act to follow. But this is the first time in Canadian history that greenhouse gas emissions have been going down when the economy is going full tilt. And
Oh, I love that question from the NDP. And I can't believe they actually brought up the climbing the CN Tower to Gilboa, because I think people keep on forgetting he actually did that when he was part of Greenpeace. And got arrested. So crazy how somebody like that could be in our government. But anyways, that's a different story. But that's a really, really good job from the NDP. They didn't do the whole thing where they said, oh, yeah, the Conservatives are so bad, but the Liberals are bad too. It actually poses the responsibility on the Liberals, saying, no, it's not the Conservatives' fault. It's your fault. Dude, you guys have been in for 9 years in power. It's time to stop saying it's the Conservatives before you that are the problem. Also, for this thing about the economy going up while the emissions are going down, look around you. Or maybe don't look around you, but look at the less affluent places in Canada and see how well the economy is for the poor class, the lower class of Canadians, or the lower middle class in Canadians. Actually, even the upper middle class aren't doing very good. But of course he doesn't do that. He just says these talking points and says, oh, the macroeconomics, that's a new word that they use. It's like they don't think that we don't know that things are going bad when 58% of Canadians are going to food banks. So, but still, the macroeconomics are looking amazing. Anyways, that's all I'm going to rant about right now. The rest of it's a lot more NDP and some more Bloc Quebecois questions, and we're already at the around 27-minute mark, so let me know if you wanted me to do the rest of question period for today down below. I will do it possibly tomorrow because it's Friday. And other than that, if you like this video, like and subscribe, and have a good day, folks.